Hi, y'all. I don't know where that southern y'all came from. I don't know. But anyway, it does work. Thank you. It's an interactive crowd, so yeah, it's good. All right. So I want to start off by acknowledging that this day ignites many different emotions, and not all happiness and joy. So I want to honor everyone here today who came, because it probably cost you something. At the very least, it cost you maybe a couple hours of sleep, right? But all the way to the possibility of being triggered in some way. My favorite name for God is Elroy, the God who sees. And he does exactly that. He sees you. He knows those of you that are carrying the pain of never having the kind of relationship with your mom like those in the Hallmark greeting card. And he sees those of you that are hurting because your mom isn't here anymore to call her and tell her that you love her. And a special love goes out to those of you that this is your first Mother's Day without her. For those of you on your knees praying for his healing, or his covering over your children, he sees you too. And he bends down to hear your whispers as you cry out for protection over your children. He also hears when you cry out that your children would know you, know him, and come back to him. He sees those of you that are longing for a husband, and those of you that have gratitude in your heart for your spouse, but you're grieving infertility. I want you to know that he was there with you at the death of your child, and was there when you miscarried your baby, and when the adoption went wrong, and when you accompanied your child to a treatment center. He never left you. So today, give yourself permission to feel your feelings. Because Jesus came here and he felt some of those exact feelings. Jesus wept. Let those two words wrap you in a blanket of comfort, reminding you he sees you, he loves you, your church family loves you. Now, to move on to my main message today. Good news is, I am not a pastor, so there will be no sermon points. Yep, and that means that there's a chance we could get out early so you could enjoy your day. Yeah, woo, yes, yeah, that was my daughter, I know it. All right, so this message is for women, but it's also for you men too. But let me just say, good morning, beautiful women. Yes, yeah. Kind of named this versus that, ideal versus real. I pray it gives you hope and permission to be who God has called you to be. I just want to say thank you to Joey so much for inviting me to speak this morning, where this month we are recognizing not only Mother's Day, but Mental Health Awareness Month. Now, does anybody see the irony in those two things happening at the same month? Is it just me that maybe my kids drove me a little cray-cray? Okay, maybe it was just me. All right, I'm kidding. But I do find myself on my knees in prayer often for my kids. Prayer for their protection and their wisdom and for direction in their life, for healing and peace over them. Anybody else pray that prayer for your kids? Yes, yep. I got to tell you, I don't pray that their life to be like somebody else's. I pray that they are obedient to what God's calling is on their life. I don't want them to have anybody else's life, but I only want them what God has called them to. My prayer for every woman here listening today is that you would love your unique, authentic this and not envy what is somebody else's ideal of that. Let me explain. Some of you ladies were made to be stay-at-home moms. That is God's plan for you. It is your this. Some of you, God has called to be single. It is your this. Some of you were made for influence in a corporate world. God made you for that. Some of you, God has called you to bring a child or children into your home that you didn't birth. It is your this. Some of you, God has called you to walk alongside kids and pour hope and love into them. It is your this. Some, God has called you to be social influencers or faith builders. It is your this. For others, your this is teaching. Your this is healing. Where God has you is your this. It's not my this. My this is not your this. Your this is not my that. If He has called you to foster, it's your this. I love and I honor and I have great respect for you. And God called you to this. God hasn't called me to that. If you're a teen or a young person in here, you might see your friends getting boyfriends or girlfriends, and all of a sudden you want that. But maybe God has not called you for this yet. Be obedient to what God has called you to. Whatever God has called you for this season, it is your this. Please don't get lost in somebody else's that. And when I say get lost, I mean don't be envious of their that. Don't shame them for their that, and don't shame yourself because your this is different than their that. Don't long for your this to be that. Let it be enough that God has put you in this and not that for this season. Grow exactly where God has planted you. I was thinking, like, this message is not original. I came across that. And I liked it, and it resonated with me, but it got me thinking and said, well, why do we focus on somebody else's that? And I started thinking, well, perhaps it's what we heard or we experienced that message in maybe a past relationship, or maybe it was growing up, or maybe it was at work. That we got the message that we are not smart enough, we're not kind enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not skinny enough, we're not the right color skin, we are not worthy or lovable. You might have saw and experienced the great inequities of society and decided that you were going to be different in your life. You set out to be the ideal mom, the ideal wife, the ideal spouse, the ideal friend, the ideal daughter. Let's just define ideal. Oops. Conforming to an ultimate standard of perfection. Romans 12:2 comes to mind. Conform to the patterns of this world, be perfect. Oh, no, that's not it. Okay, all right. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Perfection is all about what other people think. It keeps us focused on their that instead of what God's this is for us. Ideal. We see these kinds of pictures all over the place on social media. The perfect woman, the perfect hair, the perfect family, the perfect picture, the perfect lips, the perfect eyeliner. I didn't know there was perfect eyeliner. The perfect nails, the perfect house, the perfect relationship. How many of you are just exhausted looking at that? Trying to keep that up. But remember, a lot of that, us striving for that, is because we don't feel we are enough. We have to heal from this kind of thinking. Otherwise, it stays with us. We begin that dialogue in ourselves when we tell ourselves stories that are not helpful. My clients will come in and I'll ask them, when I hear the story of that they are saying, if, then, when, then, or this or that. I ask them, how do you want to be perceived by people? I ask you that. How do you want to be perceived by people? And sometimes I'll get these kinds of things. I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable, but I want to be honest. I don't want to sound self-righteous, but I want to be confident. I don't want to upset or hurt anybody's feelings, but I do want to say what's on my mind. I don't want to be offensive, but I want to be straightforward. I want to sound educated, but not like a know-it-all. I don't want to say anything too controversial, but I want to have the courage to disagree with the crowd. I don't want to seem too passionate, but I don't want to come off as dispassionate. I don't want to have to point out your errors, but I don't want to be wrong either. Man, that's a lot. That's hard. That's hard. That's ideal. That's perfect. I'm just going to tell you, for me, I want to be perceived as, if I'm being honest, I want to be perceived as competent, strong, intelligent, independent, loving, and kind. And if we're serious about how we want to be perceived, two things you got to remember. One, you can't change anybody's perception of you. But the second, if these things are important, then we need to spend time working on those things. Now, I asked my 6- and 8-year-old granddaughter this question. I said, how do you want to be perceived? I had to break it down for them so they understood. My 8-year-old granddaughter says, I want to be seen as kind, nice, and courageous. Oh, so sweet, right? Now, my 6-year-old, you're going to understand that we're going to be spending a lot of time on our knees in prayer for this one. She says, I want my friends, and I'm telling you, I'm doing the impression, I want my friends to think I'm cute. I want them to think my dress is cute and that my hair is cute. Yeah, pray for Melissa. I think the more important question is, how are we afraid to be perceived? Fill in that blank. I'll ask them, I don't want to be seen as what? I don't want people to think I am what? I would die if people thought I was what? I couldn't stand people thinking I'm what? That's your unwanted identity. Those things that you answered, your unwanted identity. I don't want to be perceived as rude. I don't want to be perceived as not intelligent. I don't want to be perceived as weak or not a good parent or not a good spouse or a flaky friend. I don't want to be perceived as not loving Jesus enough. I don't want to be perceived as lazy. I don't want to be perceived as a hot mess. It's too late, I already am a hot mess. Okay, 2 quick short stories. Yesterday I spoke, and I had this top on, and just as I'm about to walk on, there's the price tag hanging down from the top. I'm a hot mess. I am embracing that. And then they gave me the microphone and told me mute, and then I went into the bathroom and dropped it, and I apologize if you could hear my potty on the, but yeah, because I didn't know if it was on or off, and I kept switching it. Yeah, I'm pretty much a hot mess, so I better give up that one. No, I'm not looking over here at my family, because I know what they're doing. But listen, the reason why that question is so important is because unwanted identities trigger shame. Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. So what do? We up our game in these areas that we don't want to be known by to avoid being viewed as that. So if I would rather die than for people to view me as dumb, I may go to great awkward measures to show you how smart I am, right? Think about those friends who always have something to say in every conversation. Perhaps that is them hustling for their worthiness, that they are so desperate not to be viewed as dumb that they're hustling. Or if I don't want to be seen as uncaring or unkind, perhaps at Christmas I buy everybody a Christmas gift at the cost of my own finances. Maybe you couldn't stand for being thought of as a hot mess. So instead of telling me that you are just too overwhelmed to do laundry this week, you told me that it was the teen in the lobby that bumped into you that caused the stain on your shirt. Think about it. What do you do to avoid your unwanted identities? I don't want to be that, so I'm going to really hustle to be this. I explain to my clients, and I hope you hear me saying today, that the moment you are seen or perceived as those unwanted identities, you're now vulnerable. And being vulnerable means that we're open for pain and social injury. But here's the thing, you can't do anything courageous without being vulnerable. So can we just start owning our stories? And whether those stories are of pain or of their struggle or they're a hot mess or whatever it is, can we start owning it? Because my encouragement is for you to be a real mom, a real dad, a real human, a real Jesus follower. Think about, what does an unwanted perception mean to you? Would that mean you're afraid that people are gonna think of you differently? Why is it so unwanted? Where did that message come from? That's how we get to healing that, is we take the time to break down these unwanted identities so that our authentic stories can come out and we can stop proving that we are that and embrace our this. There is only one perfect person. Now let's take a look at real. Definition of real. I love these. No illusion, no filter, no Instagram filter. Oh my gosh, what would we do? No filter, not tricking, worthy of the name. They are who they say they are. There is tangible evidence that they are who they say they are. They are not to be taken lightly. Means they are not weak. They mean what they say. They have boundaries. People see them congruent. They are the same on the drive to church as they are at church, as on the drive home, as they are at work, as they are in the grocery store, as they are when they are with people that they don't know. This is what real looks like. These are real people. Real to be able to not have your house perfect and be okay that you ask your friends, can you come and help me? Because I'm too overwhelmed, and you're not worried about what they will think of you. A real person sees people different from them and is curious and spends time and gets to know them. A real person is present in the moment, not thinking about the next. They love people. You encourage, a real woman encourages other women. You practice Freudenfreude. How many of, wait a minute, I got no Ted Lasso fans in here? You got the reference, right? Freudenfreude. That means that you derive joy from others' fortune, which is opposite from Schadenfreude, which is where you derive pleasure from other people's misfortune. A real person cheers you on. They see a need, they serve. They don't always have to be asked, but if they are asked, they do what they can do with what they have. Real people tend to be wise. They tend to be caring, but boundaried. They tend to be compassionate, substantial, no fluff. They care about issues. They know what they speak about. They seek justice, and they model Jesus. I know most of you are familiar with Proverbs 31 women, verses 21 through 31. But today, we're going to take a little bit different. We're going to look at Proverbs 31, 1 through 9. So just bear with me here. So the words of King Lemuel, the strong advice his mother gave him. Okay? His mom gave it to him. "O son of mine, what can you be thinking of? Child whom I bore, the son I dedicated to God. Don't dilute your strength on fortune-hunting women, promiscuous women who shipwreck leaders." That's before all of those other things that we know about, and Proverbs where it talks about the women. But I want you to look at this. This is his mom giving him sound advice. This same advice would be appropriate today for any son or daughter. Don't dilute your strength. If God has put you in this, don't dilute your strength, don't dilute your power, don't dilute your authority. You were created for this in this season. In verse 4 to 7, it says, leaders can't afford to make fools of themselves, gulping wine and swilling beer. That's just good advice, right? Lest hungover, that they don't know right from wrong, and the people who depend on them are hurt. Yeah. When you are called to this, we need to do this because there are people depending on you to do your this. And when you don't show up to do your this, it impacts so many other people. Then going down to verse 8 and 9, speak up for the people who have no voice, for the rights of all the misfits. Speak out for justice. Stand up for the poor and the destitute. That is all of our this. I want to recognize some women today that I believe embody this and are actively modeling this or have modeled it. So I think Pastor Joey and Pastor Jen and maybe Sean, you're going to please run some flowers over to some special women in here. I'd be grateful. I want to let you know, first of all, I wish I could give every one of you something because you all contribute something valuable to this church, to this city. But I want to start with a woman who I can always count on smiling at me when I come to church. She is kind. She always has an encouraging word, and she practices Freudenfreude. She is genuinely happy when we share something good that is happening in our lives. So, Mama C, thank you for being real. Next, this mom has taught many of us how to advocate for your child. She's a champion for her kids. She recognizes God has created us all differently and tirelessly makes sure her children gets every opportunity that they deserve. Mary Jane, thank you for using your voice. Thank you for being tenacious, for asking for what you need, and modeling how to love children. And on top of that, all of that, she has an incredible servant's heart. Our next woman is also truly incredible. Anybody who has ever described her, they use the word kind, gentle, powerful, encouraging. She does so much, not just for our church in the way of serving in the food pantry. She loves her family very well. But I don't know if all of you know that she serves as a chaplain in local hospitals. And selfishly, her and her husband serve a community in Africa by teaching them the word, by giving them opportunities to grow. And she shines the light of Christ. Jan Wyatt, thank you for being real. One of the things I really love about you, Jan, is that you teach those ladies what their God-given identity is, and I am thankful. Next, I want to recognize Brianna Goss. She's one incredible woman who answered the call with her husband to take in children. They have adopted 3 children. She is a part of the PTF at the Academy, and I've been told by Pastor Greg, Pastor Jen, Pastor Joey, and Madeline what a servant's heart that she has. Thank you, Brianna. Next, these 2 ladies have served in this church for years. They have both actively participated and helped any time that they have been called on, and used their talents to bless so many. Thank you, Paula Fuller, for all the time that you have spent adding your touches in so many different areas, and for all of the children that you have taught and poured into over the years. Thank you, Linda Arnold, for your heart. I have greatly enjoyed our conversations over the years, and I want you to know that God sees you in this season and sees you serving where you could have said no. Listen, there is no doubt that in many years from now, when God calls you home, you both will hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servants." I can't even say this next woman's name without smiling. Oriana Chen, you are amazing. Oriana served in the military. She has a beautiful blended family. She serves in children's ministry. And let me just say that again. She serves in children's ministry. But I want to say thank you for your heart, your spirit. You always have a smile on your face and an encouraging word. And that is contagious. And please know that if there's ever a time that we can pray for you, please ask, because even the strong need help. So the last one we want to give honor came to me when I thought about what God's this is for all of us. It's from Micah 6:8. God calls us to act justly, to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. When I think of this scripture and the last one in Proverbs 31, 8 and 9, I knew immediately who God wanted me to honor. She's been an example of obedience and being teachable. She has always been authentic and vulnerable. She has protected us here in the church and the citizens of this city and in this country as she served in the armed forces, as well as on the police department. She has pastored many of us with her whole heart. God answered the desire of her heart of being a mom and blessed her with her chosen son, Jonathan. Pastor Deb has been on many missions across this world and here in this city. She has fed the hungry. She has housed the homeless. She has defended the weak. And she has loved with no expectation. Thank you for your this. You know, as I look out, I know that Cornerstone is God's favorite church. I know. Yep. Because it is filled when I look out at incredible men and women who love well, who are imperfectly perfect, but love well. I am happy that God has placed me in this church for this. So in closing, I just want to leave you with one more scripture from Colossians. This is from the Message, because I want to remind you that we all have this same this. We are called to bring the gospel to the world. We can do this by our words, our motives, or actions. Use your heads as you live and work amongst outsiders. Don't miss a trick. Make the most of every opportunity. Use your God-given identity. Use your this so that they can see that that is a gift from God. The goal is to bring the best in others in a conversation, not put them down and not cut them out. Love God, love people. Thank you. God bless you.